Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Gullen, hanging out on this The Leaves Are Changing Finally fall day with my co-host up in Minnesota, Tony Shore. How you doing, Tony?
I am doing great, Barb. Great to be here. And yeah, it's fall out there. The
Yeah,
leaves have turned. It's beautiful, isn't it?
fall fell. And we
Yeah,
actually
fall
had
fell.
some we had some rain in Kansas City last night for
We
the
did too.
first time in a month, like 28,
Same.
29 days. And they were saying that June 26th is the last time we had any significant measurable rain here.
Wow.
The leaves have been turning. They told us it's going to be a short season this year because it's been so dry. And we're in the fifth floor here. My office overlooks the park across the
Oh,
street.
beautiful.
So I can see all of these beautiful
Oh,
yellows and reds and
that's
oranges,
beautiful.
and there's still greens there. I am heading up to Omaha this weekend to
Oh,
go. It's the Maze trip. Remember, we talked about that last
yep.
year.
The big O, Omaha. Yep.
Yep. Yep. And my brother-in-law has put together yet another maze.
Halloween.
So
Is it a corn maze?
no,
It's something different, isn't it?
he builds it out on his driveway. He
Oh, that's right. That's
PVC
right.
pipe and tarps, and
Yeah, that's crazy.
the footprint of the maze changes every year.
Well, sure.
And he is like this major Halloween fan. He goes to haunted house conventions and
Oh
all
my
kinds.
goodness.
Yeah, my sister's been once, and she's like, "Okay, I have fulfilled that obligation.
Yeah,
Don't
never
ever
again.
ask me to go again."
I bet.
I have never set foot in a haunted house in my life, and
Oh, I have,
I
unfortunately.
no, and
Yeah, they scare me a lot. Let's just put it
and
that way.
there is some sort of outdoor haunted place out in Bonner Springs that is an outer suburb of the Kansas City metro area.
Yep.
And my significant other was like, "Do you have any interest in going?" And I'm like, "Nope."
You don't
Sounds
like
like a
being
good time.
scared. You're like
I
me. I don't even do horror movies, right?
I don't either. I scare myself well enough on my own. I don't need anybody helping
Yeah.
me. Um,
Speaking of scary, we have some sound effects.
you know, and so I told him, I'm like, if you want to go out there, awesome. Take your buddy Bruce, go have a great time. I'll be sitting here in front of the fake fireplace with my hot chocolate and my
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Well, we've got one of those fireplace inserts that's got, that's a space heater, but it does the fake
Yeah,
flames.
yeah. We
Yeah,
actually have one of those too. Yeah.
yeah.
We're
Why
the
not?
kind of people that on Christmas on our big screen TV, we put up we put up
Yes.
the Yule log channel and just
So
leave it
do
on all
I.
day because
So
it
do
plays the
we.
Christmas music and,
It does.
family coming in and out.
It
We
does.
get a kick out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and blink and we're gonna be there.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
unfortunately. Let's not I jinxed it. Let's not talk about Christmas before we're even to Halloween.
no,
Yeah.
no, but what we have been talking about and kind of what is showcased for those of you watching can see that Tony's in his home studio with his record collection.
I am.
We are talking about hobbies.
Oh yeah, I have plenty.
Okay.
Let's yep, we've got the albums right here. Record albums. Here's Jack White. Yeah. Yep, I got them all right here.
And I love your Facebook posts when you put the album cover up that you're
Oh, yeah.
currently listening to.
Yep, now playing. Yeah, I
Yep.
have an eclectic musical taste. So
You do, but it's awesome to see some of your albums and
Yeah.
all of that. And so tell me, when you retire, are you going to spend more time on your hobbies?
Yes, I plan to.
I do too. Although,
Yes.
Reading is one of my biggest hobbies. In fact, my marketers at Gradient and I trade back different books that we read and
Oh,
stuff.
wow, really? Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
big reader too. I love to read.
Well,
Audiobooks though now.
yeah, well, Jacob Hamilton got me started on A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I'm on book 5 of that.
Oh,
I
wow.
got him started on Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Oh, I'm
And
not familiar with that
oh
one.
my gosh, you must. It is such a good book series.
What's it called?
It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's
Hmm.
dystopian,
I'm writing. Oh,
post-apocalyptic
I
story.
love that stuff.
Yeah,
I
only
love
this
that.
one, there are aliens that come invade the world, and everybody who survives the initial destruction wave, and I won't tell you how that happens,
Yeah, don't spoil it for us.
they have the opportunity to go into a dungeon and compete to survive.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, or you can fend for yourself on the surface of a now desecrated planet. Okay.
Wow.
Um, there are book 7 comes out in a couple of
Oh,
weeks
wow.
in the
Okay, I'll
middle of
check that
November.
out.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And, actually found out about that in reading a romance novel, believe it or not. But
Oh,
I digress because it
yeah.
was one of those where they had thrown the title in there. And
Oh,
this is a very prolific romance author. She writes a lot of very
sure,
hilarious, I like the
sure.
humor, and it's
Yeah.
always a happy ending, but had said something about this book series, and so a bunch of us on her Facebook page all started reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl series.
Oh, yeah. I'll
So,
check it out. I'll
yeah,
check it out. I love reading books. Yeah, yeah.
but let's talk about what hobbies look like in retirement.
Okay.
And, because there are people that have far more expensive hobbies than an Audible subscription or a Kindle Unlimited subscription.
Right.
Um, I think it would kind of be fun once I finally slow down to go to all of the major league ballparks.
Wouldn't that be something?
And
I know a lot of people who've done that in
there are a lot
retirement.
of people that do it, and it just sounds like fun because you get to experience all kinds of different parts of the country. And, I think baseball fans are sometimes some of the purest people.
Yeah.
Football fans can get really rowdy. Baseball
Yeah.
fans are a little bit lower key. In fact,
Yeah, it's a different it's a different world, baseball, professional baseball versus pro football. Yeah.
and, when we go to, the Royals games, we usually get seats behind the visitors dugout. So we end
Oh.
up encountering people from those cities. Had some really interesting conversations with some guys from Milwaukee that were sitting behind us because, of course, we had gotten
The
dinner there.
Brewers.
Yeah, and I had gotten a barbecue platter, and the guy was like, "Man, they do food different in this ballpark than up in Milwaukee."
I bet. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in Milwaukee, it's cheese curds, beer, and brats.
And
Yep.
brats. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when you're thinking, this all boils down to, what are you retiring to? It's not about what you're retiring from, but what are you retiring to? And what do you
Mm,
want life to look like on the other side? When you're not working for somebody else, or when you sell the business that you've built, or when you decide to slow down, what, and if you haven't thought about what you want to do when that happens, I would suggest you start thinking about that now.
Yep.
Because obviously, a Kindle Unlimited subscription versus budgeting for traveling around the country one summer to see all the ballparks, there's a slight budget differential there.
There's a huge budget difference, and an even bigger one. If I know a lot of people, we want to buy an RV and travel the
Right.
country. I mean, an RV. I had no idea what these costs, and then I started looking. A friend of mine was looking into
Mhm.
them. You can spend as much money as
On
you
an
want on
RV as the
RV.
house. Yes.
People have spent as much money on RVs as I have saved for all of my retirement, which is ridiculous. But you can spend more on an RV than I did on my house. So yeah,
Oh, easily.
hundreds of
Easily.
thousands of dollars if you want one of the big buses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that has all the bells and whistles and
yeah.
that thinks for you and does all those things.
And then the
Or
maintenance is expensive on those, and
very
the
true.
fees. I could not believe how much the fees at camp to park,
Mhm.
the camping sites that have electricity and stuff,
And,
very expensive.
and depending on where you live, you might not be able to store it on your own property. So then you have storage fees when you're not using it. But
Yeah,
even something that's not as complex as an RV, or something as huge as an RV,
right.
um, I have had clients that are seamstresses and quilters. and had one call me and say, I bought a new quilting machine. I need some money out of my account to pay off the credit card. And she told me, and I was like, 100. And she's like, no, 1,000. And I went, I mean, more than the cost of a decent used car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. My grandfather had a quilting machine and quilted
Mhm.
because his wife had quilted, and he bought when he outlived his 3 wives. He lived to 101.
Oh my
And he
goodness.
ended up quilting, and he did like 50 quilts a year, and gave them away. And he would donate them
Wow.
to there was a Native American orphanage where he liked to camp in Wyoming or
Mhm.
Montana, I forget where it was, and then on a reservation, and he
Could
donated
be either.
quilts every year to them for the kids and for the
Oh.
families. And yeah.
Yeah, I think Montana has more Native American reservations
I think
than
it was
Wyoming
Montana, now that you
does.
mention it. Yeah, it was Montana,
Yeah,
yeah. But
Wyoming has another national park.
yeah, that's a hobby, but again, that's expensive. He spent a lot of money on that. He had a really nice quilting machine, and that was the real deal.
Mhm. It's so, or even if, traveling is a hobby, which is one of the first things that comes to mind in terms of having a cost and an expense to it.
Right.
But, we talk so much about post-retirement. We're throttling it back a little bit and today and saying, what are you going to retire to? What do you
Yeah.
want that to look like? Because when you're working with an advisor, it's you put together that plan. If I'm looking at what your expenses are day to day now and looking at that for what you're going to need in retirement, I'm doing you a disservice to not take those hobbies into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. I mean, you have to take hobbies because some people will have hobbies. Some people, all they want to do is, they might want to get into pickleball and read
Mhm.
and volunteer. Well, that's one level of cost. Not too
Right?
bad. Not too bad.
Not
Not don't
easily
have to
absorbable.
do a lot of extra figuring in for that. But then there's the people who want to travel. I'm going to want to take like the first you need to know as a financial advisor. I think what you're saying is, let's say like when my mother-in-law retired, she wanted to take all her kids and their kids and herself and significant others to Disney World
That is not
and pay
an
for the whole
inexpensive
thing.
trip.
Everybody's airfare, the Airbnb where everyone could stay, a big enough one for like
Wow.
11 or 12 people,
Wow.
tickets to Disney and Universal for multiple days, food. So at that point, we're talking about,
6 figures is what we're
yes, you're
talking about.
close. You're close. You're between, yeah, 60 and $100,000 easy.
For
Yeah.
one trip,
For
and
one trip.
granted,
So,
the trip of
yeah.
a lifetime and where you're gonna create a lot of
Yeah.
memories.
Yes.
But that is something that we need to take a look at, especially when, as an advisor, one of the tools in my arsenal is the time value of money and compound interest.
Right.
And so if we're taking a big part of that nest egg at the beginning, that's going to impact your cash flow as you
Yep.
go on. And I'm not saying that to discourage anybody. I'm telling you that because we want to be able to plan for it and do what makes the most sense for you.
Yeah. Yep. That makes
And
sense.
yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of different hobbies. I also crochet. I mean, I made a blanket for one of the staff members up there when she had her baby. And it's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. I have blankets that I made when I was in my teenage years
Oh,
that
wow.
still come out every winter when
Wow.
the weather gets cooler.
They're
And
crocheted?
they're crocheted.
Yeah.
This is, product of a Gen X child who grew up without TV. When
Yeah.
we lived all over the country, there were times when we lived in Wyoming where you didn't get a TV station. So my sister and I didn't grow up. I mean, it was a treat to go in town where they had cable and we could watch Sesame Street once we
Oh,
moved outside
yeah.
of Chicago. So, there are hobbies that you can take into retirement with you.
Yep.
something like that, as long as, my hands and fingers keep working. And, for some people, their hobby is volunteer work, or, I have family members that have a vision of being able to retire young and utilizing the skills that they have in the corporate world to help with disaster relief and managing those kinds of situations, or helping smaller churches get started and acquire a business, acquire a building, or doing that kind of thing. It's There is no wrong answer to what you want to do in retirement.
Hmm.
There and but my biggest hope and prayer for all of my clients and for all of you listeners is that you know what you're retiring to, that you're not just leaving a job. I want you to take some time to visualize what the next chapter is going to look like. And the sooner you can do that and say, I think I might want to, we can start planning for it. You're
Yeah.
not carving it in stone. You're not committing to buying the $200,000 RV. But
Right.
if you think it's even a remote consideration, then let's make sure that we're planning to have room in your finances to do that and
Yes.
still maintain your quality of life.
Yeah, especially early on when you first retire, like you say, what are you retaring to? Some people
Yeah.
say, I'm going to golf every day. Well, eventually they're going to hit a wall, probably. It's hard to golf every day, for the rest of your life. But, if a country club membership, if that's included and something you're not currently
Hmm.
have worked into your budget, maybe they do already have it in their budget, but still, when you do your retirement income plan, you've got a plan for, are you going to golf here? Are you going to travel? Are you going to do all the
Hmm.
PGA courses? What are you going to do?
I
Because
have a
that's an
friend.
expensive hobby.
It is. I have a friend who is an avid golfer. And he was one of those that when he retired, he golfed every day. And, he can't necessarily handle golfing every day anymore,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
officiates golf tournaments.
See,
So he's
that's
still
great.
involved in it in some
Yeah,
way,
that's great.
and his wife is an avid gardener. And, even that can be an expensive hobby. I mean, I put in new garden beds this spring, or actually my
Yes.
significant other did. And I
Yeah.
joked when we pulled the first tomato out, I'm like, look, it's a $600 tomato. But
Yeah, the money you've put into getting that all going, and then you pull a tomato out and you're like,
right.
it only took me $600 to grow this tomato.
Yes, and now that was the beginning. We have had a tremendous harvest. I
Sure.
and
It'll
have
pay for itself within a year with food prices the way they are.
It
So,
will,
yeah,
it
yeah.
will. I mean, I lost count of the cucumbers. I still have a dozen tomatoes sitting on my windowsill ripening, and more in the garden that are still going because they haven't petered out quite yet.
Wow.
Um, we've probably pulled out between 20 and 30 pounds of sweet potatoes.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I know that when we go to turn the garden over, we're gonna find more because,
Yes. Yeah.
it's just a thing. Um, we had basil plants that were 3 feet tall, you know,
Wow.
so made
That's a
some
lot of
homemade pesto
basil.
yeah, made some homemade pesto out of that,
That's good.
but again, there was a satisfying part to being out there and doing something and working with your
Yeah.
hands.
Well worth it.
Right, and I mean, for goodness sake, if y'all are out there working so hard right now that you don't have time to enjoy a little bit of life now, figure out, please, I am begging you, don't just retire to sit in a rocking chair.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And
and even if you're into something like reading, like,
mhm,
I love TV, movies, and books, but you can't do that every day, all day. You've gotta find something that will, get you out and socialize
yeah,
as well,
I was
but
gonna
you have
say,
to plan for it.
yeah, I mean, make sure you're being intentional about building a social circle
Yeah.
and knowing that, it is going to be a shift in your life paradigm when you retire. So, now is the time for you to start thinking about what you think you might wanna do. You know, you might wanna take up horseback riding, another expensive hobby.
Oh, yeah, my mom raised horses and had horses and broke and trained horses for other people and showed them, and
They
that is
are
a
beautiful
crazy
creatures.
expensive hobby.
Yeah, one of my best friend has horses, and they actually have a horseback riding ministry, and, I mean,
Wow.
every time the farrier comes out,
Oh,
it is
yeah.
not cheap.
Just upkeep on the hooves. The
Yeah,
farrier is expensive. I remember watching the farrier
yeah.
do their thing, and
Thanks for clarifying that. Most people don't know what a farrier is, and I forget that.
yeah, they trim the hooves and they
And put
put
on the
the shoes
horseshoes.
on. Yeah, they trim the hooves. Horses' hooves have to be trimmed, and they have to. A lot of them need the shoes,
Mhm.
and that's proper care of a horse. You have to do it. So
Yes,
yeah,
because if a horse has a problem with one of their legs,
then it's over with.
it's over, and they are
Yeah.
majestic and beautiful animals,
Oh,
so
yeah, they are, but outrageously expensive,
outrageous.
as is a lot of hobbies can get that way. So I see your point in our show today, but Barb, it sounds to me like this is all part of having a plan before you retire, or for our listeners and viewers that have already retired, getting a plan in place now
Mhm.
for that, or looking at where you're at. Can I do this? Maybe you retire, you think you're going to golf every day. Well, now you want to travel. Do I have the
Yes.
money for this, to travel in around Europe or what have you, or to bring the kids to Disney World? So meet with a financial advisor, right? They need
Yes.
to work with a trusted financial professional like yourself and your team there, Barb. So
Mhm.
before we go, how can our listeners out there set up that consultation?
They can reach out to us at the website, anchoryourretirement.com, or you can always call us at 913-553-6222. Go to the appointments and scheduling line. You'll get to talk to Amanda. If she doesn't answer you live, she'll get right back to you. And she'll schedule a time for you to meet with either myself or one of our other qualified fiduciaries and help you start designing your future a little bit and figuring out not just what you're retiring from and how you're retiring, but what you get to retire to.
There you go. What are you going to retire to? I like that, Barb. That's a great one. That's one I haven't heard people talk about a lot, but you need to plan for it. So great show today, Barb.
Thanks, Tony. It's been
Yeah.
fun visiting with you.
Yeah, it
And
always is.
yes, and if I look a little bit more frightened next time, then my brother-in-law actually talked me into going through the maze.
Oh, you should do the maze. Do the
I
maze.
I will. He goes easy on me because he
Yeah.
knows what my threshold isn't,
But
so
it's scary, right? You don't just it's not just finding your way through, they actually scare you throughout.
no, no, I mean, he's got one section that where the walls squeeze in and you kinda have to push your
Oh,
way out. You
yep.
can get,
Nope.
like, really claustrophobic really
Nope.
quick.
I
He's
would
got
not. Nope.
Yeah,
Can't do
he's
it.
got another one where it's got lights and shadows where it looks like there's cockroaches running across the floor, and it
Oh.
shoots out puffs of air so that it feel yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
jeez.
and I mean, he's got a couple of friends that actually go into the maze and will, like
Yeah,
I mean, it's a destination, like, between 4 and 600 people go through it every year for Halloween. We
that's
always go
crazy.
up for the soft launch the weekend before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he loves doing it. He's got the family Model T that his great great whatever grandfather bought brand new in 1926, and it's been in the family
Wow.
all these years. He's been
Wow.
restoring it. I mean, you talk about hobbies.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another one. That's
yes,
another one.
yes. So, I mean, and the great part is that since he uses PVC pipe and tarp, it all breaks down into comparatively a pretty small box to sit in the attic when it's not maze season.
That's crazy. That's
So,
wild. Well, that's fun. I couldn't do it though. I'm
no,
especially claustrophobic, so that wouldn't work
yeah,
for me.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I knew it was coming. So, but even then, it's only like an 8 or a 10-foot stretch, but by the time you get out of there, you
Oh,
are ready to be out.
yeah. There you go. Well, it sounds good for people who like that kind of thing. Well, Barb, have fun with that. And I will talk to you and our listeners and viewers next week. That does it for today's episode of Anchor Your Retirement with our host, Barb Gullen.
We'll see you soon. What a fun show.